Good morning, and welcome to the second Archives webinar, A House for Us All, Diocesan House, the former Leary Mansion. I'm Diane Wells, the Archivist and Records Manager for the Diocese of Olympia, and I want to thank you for joining me today for a virtual tour of your Diocesan House, where the offices of the Bishop and his staff are located. Diocesan House is, however, much more than an office. It is a historic home with strong ties to the city of Seattle and to the Episcopal Church. It is also a place of welcome and hospitality. It is your diocesan house and a house for us all. However, before we go into the house, I'd like to provide a little historical background about just how we got to this amazing place. For those of you who are familiar with the history of the Diocese of Olympia, I apologize for going over old ground. But for those of you who may not be as familiar, I hope this brief glimpse from the past will be interesting to you. When the first Episcopal missionaries arrived in the Oregon Territory, Portland, Oregon was their first stop and became the first sea city. Early missionary bishops, Thomas Fielding Scott and Benjamin Wister Morris, who are pictured here, were both headquartered in Portland at Trinity Parish. When Washington became a separate missionary territory in 1880, John Adams Paddock was named bishop, and shortly thereafter, the bishop's headquarters was moved to Tacoma. Once constructed, St. Luke's Memorial Church was named the Pro-Cathedral. If you don't know, a pro-cathedral is a church named by a diocesan bishop, or in this case, the missionary bishop, to serve as a cathedral, but which remains under the governance of the vestry and rector or dean. It is used as a cathedral for diocesan purposes, but without the formation of a legal cathedral organization and without a cathedral chapter. It is not the official cathedral of the diocese. The church's status as pro-cathedral ends when the bishop no longer holds his episcopate, and the pro-cathedral status may or may not be extended by the next bishop. In this particular instance, St. Luke's status as the pro-cathedral was extended by the next two bishops. In 1892, Washington was divided into the missionary districts of Spokane and Olympia, with the headquarters for the District of Olympia remaining in Tacoma. Succeeding bishops, Barker and Keeter, pictured here along with Bishop Paddock, continued to maintain offices in Tacoma. In 1910, the Missionary District of Olympia became the self-supporting Diocese of Olympia. Bishop Keeter died in 1924, and his successor, Bishop Simeon Arthur Houston, moved diocesan headquarters to Seattle, making it his see city, and St. Mark's the cathedral for the diocese. Bishop Houston's office was located in the American Building in downtown Seattle, about 5 miles from St. Mark's Cathedral on Capitol Hill. Bishop Houston served from 1925 until his retirement in 1947, and was succeeded by the Right Reverend Stephen Fielding Bain Jr., who in 1948 was the driving force behind the acquisition of the Leary Mansion, our diocesan house. But now, back to the story of the house itself. Diocesan House was originally built for John and Eliza Leary in what is now the Capitol Hill neighborhood of Seattle. Construction began in 1904 and was completed between 1908 and 1909. Now here's a view of the mansion under construction. And here is a view of the finished home in 1909. Except for the front grounds, now a parking area, and the entrance, which has been modified to allow easier access, it looks very much today as it did when it was new 111 years ago. Diocesan House sits on the western bluff of Capitol Hill, overlooking Lake Union. This view of the lake was taken at about the time the mansion was constructed. Though much less populated and with no Space Needle or freeway in sight, it actually looks quite similar to today's scene. As mentioned earlier, the mansion was built for John and Eliza Leary. John Leary was an attorney, politician, and entrepreneur, and one of the leading movers and shakers in the city. He was elected mayor of Seattle in 1884 and his wide-ranging business interests included real estate, railroads, banking, and publishing. Born in New Brunswick, Canada in 1837, he arrived in Seattle in 1869 when the town was a mere frontier village with a population of about 1,000. He quickly achieved a position of prominence, becoming involved with almost every major civic and commercial undertaking in the city. Unfortunately, he died in 1905 before his new home was completed. Eliza Ferry Leary was born in Illinois in 1851. She came to the Pacific Northwest in 1869, settling in Olympia with her parents and 4 younger siblings. Her father, Elisha P. Ferry, served as territorial governor and subsequently as the first governor of the state when Washington achieved statehood in 1889. Over the years, she became associated with many civic and charitable organizations. Eliza's family belonged to the Episcopal Church and attended St. John's in Olympia, where they were active in church affairs. John and Eliza were married at St. John's on April 21st, 1892. John was 54 years of age, a widower whose first wife, Mary, had died in 1890, and Eliza was 40. In Seattle, the Learys attended Trinity Parish. The altar pictured here was given to Trinity by the Learys. After her husband's death in 1905, Eliza, with help from family members, completed the construction of her new home and lived there until her death on March 8, 1935. Her funeral was held at the mansion with the Reverend Dr. Herbert H. Gowan, former rector of Trinity Parish in Seattle, officiating at the service. This photo is from that time period. Upon Eliza's death, the house was sold to the General Insurance Company, which is now Safeco. However, the company's plans for the mansion did not materialize, and they donated it to the American Red Cross, which used it as a headquarters during World War II. After the war, the Red Cross put the mansion up for sale, and in 1948, the Diocese of Olympia, under the leadership of Bishop Stephen F. Bain Jr., purchased it for its headquarters, and it has been known as Diocesan House ever since. The mansion's convenient location, just north of St. Mark's Cathedral, undoubtedly influenced this decision. So now, after that somewhat lengthy history, we have finally made it to Diocesan House. So let's go in and take a look around. So we entered through the red doors, symbols of refuge and sanctuary. When the house was purchased, Bishop Bain wrote, "The key to the Diocesan House is more than a little metal gadget. It is an idea. It is the discovery that the diocese is not you or they, it is always us." The Diocesan House expresses that idea. It belongs to us all. It does not belong to them. There is no them. The diocese is us, a house for us all. Upon entering, you first come to the reception area, giving a glimpse of things to come. If I were leading you on a physical tour, this is where I would meet you and begin the story. As you enter, look to the left, and you will see the plaque commemorating the fact that the house is on the National Register of Historic Places, an honor it received in 1972. Yeah, not quite 200 years ago, in 1972. From the reception area, we go through the Great Hall, featuring exquisite woodwork, stained glass windows, the original carpet, almost certainly designed by Charles Boissy, a well-known English arts and crafts designer, and a massive marble fireplace. We continue to walk on this carpet every day, though it is now 111 years old. There are also many fireplaces in the house, and they are all coal fireplaces. Certainly standard at the time, but it didn't hurt that Mr. Leary was a coal merchant, among his many other ventures. Here's a close-up of some of the woodwork in the Great Hall. The wood panels are Circassian walnut, which is native to the region, stretching from the Balkans eastward to the Himalayas. It is prized by fine woodworkers for its durability, luster, and three-dimensional quality. You'll find this woodwork throughout the house. When the mansion was built, two incredible Tiffany glass windows were installed in the Great Hall. The larger and more dramatic of the two became known as the peacock window and was installed just to the right of the fireplace. The smaller window, a tree and water landscape scene, was installed to the left and above the fireplace. The windows remained until 1956, when they were removed and replaced with the primarily clear glass windows we have today. Here are a few close-ups of the amazing glasswork in these windows. The peacock's tail and the hollyhocks along the lower wall. The peacock's tail is actually made up of 7 layers of glass. The windows were apparently removed because it felt that they made the room look too dark and were perhaps too secular for a building belonging to the church. Dr. James Hodges, Vice President for Finance at the time, wrote in a letter to Bishop Bain that they made the room look like a funeral parlor. Bishop Bain is quoted as saying that this is meant to be a working office, not a museum. At any rate, the windows were taken out and donated to the University of Washington. They remained in storage for many years. They were shown briefly and then they were put back into storage. But they have just recently been restored and are now featured at the new Burke Museum on the University of Washington campus. When possible, I would highly recommend making a field trip to see them. They are truly incredible. Opposite the fireplace in the Great Hall is the library, with its paneled interior and beautiful Rookwood tile fireplace. Today, the library is the office of the Canon to the Ordinary. The Rookwood Pottery Company in Cincinnati, Ohio, went out of business in the mid-1960s, but the pottery and tile it produced is very valuable and highly sought after by collectors. We are fortunate to have many examples of Rookwood tile on display throughout the house. Here's a close-up of the tile on the fireplace in the library. This piece was designed specifically for this house and for the Learys. To me, it looks more like the Columbia River and Eastern Washington than the Puget Sound region. But then the pottery was in Cincinnati, so perhaps that explains the inaccurate geography. Regardless, it is an amazing piece. The rose garden, located outside the library, is beautiful when in bloom. If we go back into the Great Hall, turn around and look up, we see the second floor balcony, which features more of the amazing woodwork in the house. Here is a good example of what's called European scrap work. Austrian and Belgian craftsmen executed the fine designs. The 3 chandeliers that you see in the 2 pictures to the right are made of brass and feature a medieval look. If we turn around again and continue through the Great Hall, we pass through a set of pocket doors and come to the parlor. This is a smaller room with a more intimate feel than the Great Hall. It has a lovely fireplace with a rose design and an intricate plaster ceiling. An interior wall has been added to make additional office space, and you can see that towards the back of the room. Turning left from the parlor, we pass through an anteroom, now the office for the bishop's executive assistant, and come to the room that has historically been called the Porte Cochere. The term Porte Cochere literally means coach gateway. It is usually a covered entrance through which a vehicle can pass and let passengers off under cover. The Porte Cochere in the mansion, which may actually have been a sun porch and not a true Porte Cochere, was at some point enclosed and is now the bishop's office. If you look in the rear corners, you can see the pillars that once formed the supports for the outside structure. We've now completed our tour of the Great Hall and its immediate surroundings. Next, we'll climb the grand staircase to the second floor. And we'll enjoy the lovely leaded glass windows on the second floor landing. Now we're going to turn left and go down the balcony to the room which was originally built as a nursery. The Learys did not have any children, but they did have nieces and nephews, and I'm sure this lovely room was frequently used. It has a beautiful Rookwood tile fireplace with a swan motif that was also constructed specifically for the house, and an attached bathroom with more Rookwood tiles in the hare and hounds pattern. The hare and hounds pattern was a standard pattern that you could purchase from Rookwood's catalog. The swan fireplace was also custom designed for the house, just as the one in the library was custom designed for the house. From the nursery, we continue down the balcony to what was Mrs. Leary's bedroom, with its Italian tile fireplace, floor to ceiling Rookwood tile bath, and separate dressing room. The dressing room is complete with cupboards for hats. Now, Mrs. Leary's bedroom is a very large room. In Mrs. Leary's day, there were approximately 30 pieces of furniture located in the room, and we currently have several of those pieces. Today, the room is home to the Diocesan Altar Guild. The tiles there you see on the left are in the Water Babies pattern, and they literally stretch from floor to ceiling. The Rookwood Tile Company not only produced art tiles such as these, but they also did more utilitarian tiles, which were used in railroad stations and other buildings of that nature. And this room shows off all of those, both the plain tiles and the art tiles. Retracing our steps, we come to the two guest bedrooms, each with its own Rookwood tile bath and a telephone in one of the rooms. The room with the telephone is now, appropriately, the communications office, and the other guest bedroom currently provides space for finance offices. When we're in the house and can look closely at the phone, you'll see labels on there for Mrs. Leary, for the cook, for the kitchen, and other parts of the house that you might want to contact. The other guest bedroom, as I said, provides space for the finance offices. The tiles are in the iris pattern and the cattail pattern. These are in the two bathrooms that connect to the two guest bedrooms. The bath with the cattail pattern currently serves as the office for Carrie Ullman, our internet strategist, and the man behind the scenes for this webinar. Now we're going to climb the steep stairs to the third floor, where we'll find what was originally the billiard room in the house, along with three large attics. The billiard room, with its own Rookwood tile fireplace sporting a castle theme, is now the Archives, my office, and that's where I'm speaking to you from today. And the three attics now house the Diocesan Archives. Next, we go back down the stairs, turn right, and walk down the hall to the servants' quarters. They are now the accounting offices. And there you'll also find a telephone and the back stairs to the kitchen. These stairs are quite a contrast to the grand stairway at the front of the house. The back stairs take us into the kitchen with its original Delft tiles. The kitchen has been redone many times, and unfortunately, I've not been able to find any pictures of what it looked like in the days of Mrs. Leary. To the best of my knowledge, the leaded glass windows and the Delft tiles are all that remain of the original configuration of this room. From the kitchen, we pass through the servants' dining room to the butler's pantry, with its leaded glass cupboards and copper sink. As the copper sink provided a softer surface, it was used for washing the fine china and crystal that was housed in the pantry. In addition, the lower cupboards were heated via the radiators so that plates could be kept warm. The butler's pantry leads into the formal dining room, paneled in mahogany with a marble fireplace, carved ceiling, and pineapple light fixture, which is a symbol of hospitality. Today, the dining room is referred to as the council room and is used as the largest meeting room in the house. And as you can see, portraits of diocesan bishops decorate the walls. Here are a few more pictures of the formal dining or council room. The woodwork is mahogany. The panel on the left shows what is called book-matched veneer. If you look closely, you may see what resembles an elephant's trunk. Looking closely at the middle photo, reveals a small owl. The carvings throughout the house contain flora and fauna of all description. Next is the marble fireplace with the seal of the diocese, beautifully embroidered by a parishioner from St. Clement's in Seattle. And it is encased in glass with carved lion's heads on either side. Then below is another view of the room. From the dining room, there is easy access to the original smoking room with its view of Lake Union and a hand-painted frieze adorning the walls. Today, this room is used as a central workroom and is situated behind the receptionist desk, facing the main entryway. From the smoking room, we cross the entryway and take the grand stairway down to the ballroom, where Mrs. Leary once held lavish costume balls. The ballroom is now the resource center, where the diocesan library is located, along with several staff offices. In July 1987, there was a fire at Diocesan House. Fortunately, a jogger saw smoke while on his early morning run. The fire department was alerted and a total disaster was averted. However, there was a lot of fire damage, with the resource center being the most badly affected, as in shown in this collage of pictures at the left. There was also extensive smoke damage, and some of the woodwork in the Great Hall was destroyed. The carpet in the Great Hall also suffered water damage. Amazingly, within a year, everything was cleaned, repaired, and put back together. And in April 1988, a grand reopening was held. So here's also a photo of the Resource Center as it looks today. And finally, we climb back up the stairs to the exit. As we leave the house, be sure to look back over your shoulder, because Mr. and Mrs. Leary are watching you from the doorway as you depart. And if you look closely at this picture, you can see Mr. Leary on the left and Mrs. Leary on the right, taking a good look and watching you as you leave the house. So we hope you've enjoyed your virtual tour. By making your diocesan house accessible in this way, we've tried to honor Bishop Bain's pledge that Diocesan House would always be open for the community to see and enjoy. We look forward to the time when we may once again welcome you through its doors in person. When that time comes, please contact me and I'd be happy to show you around. And again, thank you so much for visiting.
If there are any questions, please put them in the Q&A. Diane, we do have one if you want to click on the Q&A button.
Well, the Keter Chapel is the chapel, the alcove off to the side of the Great Hall. And I didn't happen to get a picture of it into this presentation, but it is still there. And there's a question about whether or not the house was haunted. Well, some people say that it is, and there seem to be a few sightings now and then, so you'll just have to come and make up your own mind.
I recall, wasn't there someone who said that they saw Mrs. Leary's dog in the grand... Yes.
Yeah. There have apparently been a couple of sightings of Pup, who is the little white dog, and I do have actual pictures of Pup, but I have not seen him in the house, but supposedly he has been seen. Well, thank you, and if there aren't any more questions, again, I do appreciate your being with us today, and please come and visit in person as soon as you're able, and I'll be more than happy to take you around, and you'll get to see a lot of things that were not in this presentation today. So I look forward to that. Thank you very much.